Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Cover to Cover. You're here with Mo,
Andrea,
and Morgan.
And today we want to tackle the science of reading, why reading is so important, and discuss the decline of reading in the U.S. among young people. But first, we have a little story and some tips that we want to share with you guys. Last week, thousands of book enthusiasts were in attendance at New York City's BookCon. Among notable speakers was Margaret Atwood. Some of her top tips for writing successfully that she decided to share at the conference were creating checklists, using computers for the internet, and drinking tons of coffee, which is all really good advice. But we thought we would see if we had any other advice that we could give up. Ladies?
I would say vacation. I actually did a study abroad in Hungary when I was studying journalism, and for our class, we literally just had to go out in the city and find stories. And I loved that. It gave us so much freedom, and there was so much inspiration in the city of Budapest that I was in. So I would always suggest vacation.
I love that because that has not been my experience, but y'all know I went to school a lot for a very long time, and so I've had to write a lot. During my graduate thesis, my approach was I would take 50 minutes and focus all of my attention on writing. I would turn off any notifications. I would not have the internet up. You can actually get an app to turn it off for you and set it on a timer. Yeah, if you can't put that discipline in place yourself, this app could help. But I'll take 50 minutes of focus, and then I'll take a 10-minute break. 50 minutes, 10 minutes, 50 minutes, 10 minutes. And I'd also listen to a playlist on Spotify called Deep Focus. And it really, really helped me just get in the zone. And then when I'm starting to get fidgety or frustrated or not inspired, I knew that I had 10 minutes coming up where I could get up, walk around, get another cup of coffee, call someone, text someone, look at Facebook, whatever I needed to do.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful.
That's awesome. I'll have to check that playlist out because I'm a really good multitasker as well, so I can definitely listen to music or something while I'm writing. I know a lot of people can't. They need it like intense silence.
Yeah.
But for me, the things that have worked best when writing is, number one, storyboarding. And that can look like a bunch of different things to a bunch of different people. So storyboarding could either be writing an outline and then going back and filling it in, or for me, it's physically a storyboard that I set up. And so I look like a crazy person, like a serial killer at my house, because when I'm writing something, I'll take little index cards and I'll write little bits of information and tack them on the wall, and then I'll use string and connect them together and then rearrange them for like the flow of the story, because I feel like I have a lot of ideas but I don't know how they fit together. So that's my number one advice.
Can you take a picture of this and send it to me? Because I want to see.
It's
I want to
so
see what this
creepy.
looks like.
I feel so sad about it. But it's good. It's a good way to do it. And then also just keeping a pen and paper on your nightstand, because when you wake up in the middle of the night and you have like this great idea.
That happens all the time. Yeah.
Don't you struggle with like, should I get up? What do I do? Do I lay here, type it in my phone? Just get it out of the way. Turn the light on, write it down, go back to sleep.
It's true. You never remember it in the morning.
Yeah.
That's a really great idea.
This is what my husband does, and it sometimes wakes me up, but he will do a voice recording. And when he had an old phone, he didn't have enough space on his phone to record anything else, so he would call me and leave it on a message on my phone, so then I couldn't delete it. Yeah, so I have all these messages from Josh, and he's like, don't delete them, because it's all of his song ideas and book ideas and all of that he's recorded in the middle of the day.
I do that too because I'm typically driving all the time, so like I'll pull over into a parking lot and like voice record whatever ideas I have, because that's kind of my time to myself to be able to think. So awesome, good ideas.
That's great.
So yeah, those are all great tips to keep us writing, but let's talk about reasons to keep reading.
Okay.
As you know, reading is a complex cognitive activity. Neuroscience has been studying the effects of written language for decades to better understand what it does to the human brain. Recently, we found that 7 really important reasons to keep reading and doing it forever are?
Yeah, so one of my favorite tips that we learned from that is that reading makes you a more caring and empathetic person, right? So actually the act of reading fiction is directly linked to understanding the emotions of others. And I think that's really important because fiction can get a lot of flack from people who are very like, nonfiction is the only way. Nonfiction's great. But when stories show you human interactions that you might not personally experience, they open this window for you to understand that kind of relationship.
That is so interesting because I would be the nonfiction person, and I've read numerous books on relationships and understanding people and different personalities and management and even how to become a more likable person, how to be more charismatic, but that's a very interesting point. So maybe I should switch my focus and read more fiction to see what that does for how I interact with people, manage people, work with people.
Because, I mean, you get connected to a character. So I can totally see that. And you're floating worlds, so you're getting to know different cultures, different places, and definitely, I mean, you're thinking outside of the box, so I can definitely see how you do that in a day-to-day interaction.
Yeah. Well, on that note, reading has been shown to make you smarter. And there's numerous studies, I've read many of them, that when you read to your children and start having them read back to you, it increases their vocabulary, it gets them interested in a story, and those children always perform better in school than those who don't read. There's actually lots of programs to encourage mothers to read to their children. So
that makes sense.
Makes you smarter.
We have a t-shirt for that, so stay tuned because more on that later. Also, reading has been proven to reduce stress, even more so than walking. So reading reduces stress by 68%,
Wow.
as opposed to walking, which would reduce stress by 42%.
That is so crazy because walking has always been my go-to stress reliever. Like, leash the dog up, go out to the park, and just like let it out. But maybe we should bring a book along.
Exactly.
And maybe we should create some kind of app where it not only tracks your steps on your Fitbit or your Apple Watch or whatever you use.
How many pages you turn.
But how many pages or
Yeah,
the time spent reading. And maybe we can submit that to our insurance company.
Oh.
For, there's incentive programs.
We get
to
a lot
keep
of
you healthy.
incentives here.
Yeah, why don't we have a Fitbit for cognitive activity?
There you go.
Oh,
That'd
okay.
be interesting.
We're going to be billionaires because we're going to make that happen.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're going to challenge all your friends.
And in the meantime, we'll just grow our relationships and make them better because reading statistically makes your relationship stronger, especially if you're reading the same books and discussing them together. Because I think the reason is because reading is, like art, a subjective activity. And so we could read the same thing but have two different perspectives on it. So if we could discuss that, that could like bring us closer together and help us understand each other.
Is there a book that you and your husband have read together?
We read a lot of books together, like
Okay.
at the same time, especially if it's like a new release. It's like the last book in a series we're reading came out, we're going to buy 2 copies and we're both going to read it together. And that's just like a fun thing to do.
Yeah, mine comes home and he says, I got this book for you. Like, he does this every single week. He goes to the library. So this is one of them, The Leading Brain, Powerful Science-Based Strategies for Achieving Peak Performance. I don't know what he's trying to tell me.
Okay.
These kinds of books, he's always pushing me to be better. But the first book that we didn't read the book at the same time, but we both read it and we discussed it a lot, is this book called Wild at Heart.
Yes.
And it's a book about...
That's a really good one. Have you
yeah.
read Captivating?
I have, yes.
That's also...
So we had lots of conversations about that book when we were first dating because it is about men and how men should be and how they're meant to be and how they should be in relationships. And so that was the first one that we ever read. Not at the same time, but we both read and discussed a lot.
That's awesome.
Cool. Well, did you guys know that reading can prevent Alzheimer's? Because, I mean, you are exercising your brain
Makes sense.
when you're reading. So just like on your Fitbit, then you could possibly track it on your new Fitbit and prevent your Alzheimer's. So.
Yeah, I mean, that makes
Patent
sense.
pending.
And like a lot of people with Alzheimer's will do puzzles, so
Yeah.
I guess it's just like a different way to keep exercising.
Crossword puzzles and the math ones. Yeah. So another thing that reading does for you is make you a better speaker because it increases your vocabulary and teaches you new words. So if you are into public speaking or want to be a better speaker, just read more books.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And the last new little thing that we found out is that reading also keeps your brain really sharp. So it helps with Alzheimer's, which is a degenerative disease. But before that, it'll help you just keep your functions in better shape. So it'll keep your memory strong. The more you read, the better retention you have for all things because you're constantly expanding. So that's pretty solid.
So I wonder if reading post on Facebook, does that count?
Sure. I don't see why not. I feel like reading anything is good.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, speaking of what reading and the benefits of it, it makes me want to take a break and go read a book right now.
Sounds good.
I think we should. So we are going to take a break, and in just a minute we're going to learn some more stats about reading and the next generation, how much they're reading, and what we can do to encourage more. So we'll see you in a few seconds.
Bye.
All right, so we just learned about how important reading can be. So everyone loves to read, right? Well, the statistics say differently.
Yeah, so the National Assessment for Education Progress, or NAEP, is a key resource for information about academic performance in the U.S. They have reported that a higher percentage of younger students read for fun almost every day compared to older students who don't. They have reported that 53% of 9-year-olds read for fun in 1984 as compared to today, where 53% read now. In 1984, 35% of 13-year-olds read for fun as compared to today's 27%. Also in 1984, 31% of 17-year-olds read for fun as compared to 19% today. The NAEP additionally reports that 4th, 8th, and 12th grade readers their scores are abysmally low, particularly among disadvantaged students. Because of this, the U.S. fares poorly on cross-national comparisons of literacy, with about 25 to 30% of the population exhibiting literacy skills that are low by standard metrics. So what do you guys think about that, and what are some ways that we can help increase literacy in the U.S.?
I think it's really sad. It makes me really sad that over the years, young people have quit reading as much as they used to. I mean, those statistics, 31% of 17-year-olds in 1984 would read for fun, and now it's only 19%. I don't know about you guys, but as a kid, I was a big reader.
Mm-hmm. Well, you also didn't have an iPad or an iPhone. I mean,
That's
I had
true.
a Game Boy.
Yeah.
But even then, my mom gave me Game Boy time. So I could only play for, say, 20 minutes or 30 minutes or something, and then I had to go do something else. And I know a lot of parents do that now with their kids' iPads and iPhones and computers and shows, but I think that's one thing that parents can do.
Well, as you're getting older, everything is moving so fast. I mean, you're joining sports, and you're joining debate team, and all of these different things, and the time just gets shorter and shorter. But, you know, when you were younger, there was time for reading, and we really encouraged that, and I think it's kind of sad that, you know, as you get into older grades, that isn't as encouraged anymore.
I guess I never thought about that. Yeah, maybe kids today don't have as much free time as we used to have because they have all these different things. They're trying to pad their resume for college and stuff.
Taking AP classes.
Yeah, it's very time consuming. But ways that I think that we could help increase that is, besides cutting screen time, that's a great idea. I didn't even think about that because I don't have kids. That makes sense. But making the library a fun place. For me, when I was young, the library was so much fun.
Thinking that too, yeah. I mean, it was this bright, colorful place where, I mean, you do enter a new world, and there were bean bags, I remember. Like, don't you guys remember all of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if there's a way that we can, you know, help libraries in schools and just any libraries in general, maybe painting them, you know, taking on a project. I mean, obviously there are probably some restrictions, but making libraries more fun and then pouring into them. I know recently people have been pouring into, you know, school lunch funds. So generous people will be donating to districts or donating to schools to help students have lunch. So if we did that for libraries or schools, or even just donating books.
Yeah.
Just like being involved in the community and like letting them know that reading is cool.
Yeah, so I was just thinking about how I know libraries in our community have a lot of activities and things for parents and their children. I just recently saw one of my friends who has a newborn is already taking her newborn to the library for reading time, story time. But what if you're in daycare, or what if your parents can't get you there, or you don't have a library close by? But I like the idea of pouring into our schools' libraries, because not all of our schools have the funding to make it such a fun and exciting place. That's a great idea. I recently reached out to one of my friends who is a teacher, and I asked her, what could we do to help increase literacy in your community? As a teacher, what would you love to see us do? So we're looking for ideas for something for us to do. So if you have any, please put it in the comments. We'd love to know.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, have you guys seen the free libraries? I mean, people make like these little like birdhouse looking things, and so they have a little door, and you just open the door and you can take a book for free, and then you put a book back for someone else to read.
I love that. And I feel like when you see that at somebody's house, you instantly know that those people are like good people. Like it's just like a good sign. But I like what you said about if you don't have access to a library, or like, you know, you live in a place where you don't have that, like, what can you do? And a thing that I want to do with my future family, and that we are already doing with our husbands and like with our friends and our family, is reading together, like having family reading time. Like I think if I had kids, it would be so cool to give them really cool books that I loved when I was a kid, and then we could read them together and talk about it.
Can you imagine like making a treehouse for your family, and like you guys just all go out there and like a Friday night and you have just family reading
That's
time?
right. You like to read inside of like confined
boxes,
spaces.
yes.
That's funny. That's so cute.
So you have game
That'd be
night,
fun.
and then you have reading night.
Yeah.
I love it.
Just make it fun.
I feel like every night at my house is reading night, though, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
But
Well, we'll all have to like make a tree house and come together, and then one day bring our families, and you guys can come too.
Yeah.
that would be a lot of fun.
So, do you guys have any other ideas for different things you can do? I had one more big thing.
Okay.
So kids love to collect stuff. I know when I was a kid, I was always like collecting like nonsense or Barbies or whatever. So what if you started your kids with a really cool book collection? Like what if
that's
books
awesome.
was the thing you got them to collect? And then they could grow up and like aspire to buy all those really expensive like first edition books that they'll never be able to afford. But at least they're like pining for books and not like really expensive cars or something, right?
You are killing me, because this is a point of tension in my household, because we have moved several times, and
Yeah.
moving books is such a pain, where we have boxes and boxes of books still at my parents' house, because we moved across the country once, and I was like, I'm going to limit the amount of stuff we take. And but my husband is kind of a book hoarder, and so that's when I bought him an e-reader. So I think we're going to talk about that in a minute, because
No books, paper books.
I know. This is something we talk about a lot in the office.
Yeah,
'Cause-
and well, I mean, I love giving to bookstores. Actually, I grew up in Fort Myers, Florida, and my family, there was this bookstore, and we were the #1 customers at this bookstore. So then we moved to Texas, and they probably were very sad. But yeah, I mean, bookstores are kind of fading with ebooks and all of that. So, I mean, I would just say give to bookstores.
Yeah, support your local bookstore.
Well, speaking of increasing our desire to read and great books, Tiffany is going to share with us what she's reading and what's on her nightstand. So, Tiffany, what do you got for us, girl?
Thanks, guys. Hi, everyone. It's Tiffany here, and today we're talking about Commonwealth, which is a book by Ann Patchett. It's her 7th book, and they keep getting better and better. The last one I read was called A State of Wonder. It takes place in the Brazilian jungle with a pharmacologist who's trying to find why her colleague went mysteriously missing. He was there on a mission to explore plants for miracle drugs. There's a huge tug-of-war in this book. It was honestly one of my favorite books I read last year. And I really thought that since I loved State of Wonder so much, that I was going to love Anne's latest book, Commonwealth, which actually left me feeling with mixed emotions. And here's why. All of her former books took us to exotic locations, had us turning the pages, but this book is more like a memoir of a memoir. And in fact, I'll read a little more from an interview with the author later in the segment. But for now, let me tell you about the plot. So Commonwealth starts out with a simple kiss that turns into an affair that completely ruins 2 marriages and results in a blended family that just does not want to blend. There's an unexpected death, and there's topics in there that make me very uncomfortable. The book spans 50 years. It's broken into little vignettes of stories about the 6 children whose lives were forever changed after that one kiss. And the book starts in the 60s, which is my favorite era to read about. The first scene is at Franny's christening. So when Franny gets to be 26, she has an affair with a much older novelist who turns her childhood memories into a book. And that should be your biggest fear if you're dating a writer, guys. Exactly this. The youngest child of that blended family then finds the book, and lots of questions are raised about the past. What part is fake? What part is real? What really happened to the child that died? And why are their lives there for all to read in black and white? So not unlike her other books, this book is deep and complex. But this book is unique to the author's portfolio because it touches on her own personal life. So I have this interview here, and in an interview about the book, Patchett said, "My parents got divorced when I was young. My mother married someone who had 4 children, and we moved to the other side of the country, albeit not to Virginia. And I think that being thrown together, being pulled out of a family and put into a family has always been very interesting to me. It's so complicated. It's so complicated to figure out who you're going to spend Christmas with." Noting that many authors' first novels are based on their own experience, Patchett explained that she had started her career wanting to prove that I had this great imagination. But the wonderful thing about publishing this book at 52 is that I know I'm capable of working from a place of deep imagination. Now I just feel like I own every part of myself and my life and my imagination and the rocky terrain of my own brain, and that feels really good. So is Commonwealth something you'd like to have on your nightstand? Stick around for the link in the comments at the end of the show, and this beautiful book can be yours for just 99 cents. So that's it for me, guys. I'm Tiffany Harlick, and this was What's on My Nightstand.
Thanks so much, Tiffany. We will have Commonwealth on flash sale right after the show for 19 minutes. You can get it for only 99 cents. So grab your copy and let us know what you think.
All right, so we've been talking a little bit about the science of reading. So let's go ahead and dive into that discussion about ebooks versus paper books. I know we have a lot of feelings about it, so let's just talk about it.
Well, let us know what you guys think. Do you guys think ebooks forever? Do you prefer paper books? What's your jam?
Hard. I know it's hard for Morgan because she really, really likes to read ebooks. Why don't you start?
Okay, so I have read many books on how to speed read. Because like I said, I went to school forever. I had to read a lot and I had to write a lot. So I read a book on how to read better, how to speed read. So, and books like this about the leading brain, it's about not moving your eyes. And on my phone or on an e-reader, I can blow it up and I can read through it much quicker. And that's how I've learned to speed read. So I love holding a good book, but I also like to speed read.
That's
so
interesting that you said you would do that for school, because one of the reasons that I've seen that people say that paper books are better is because the physical act of reading paper versus ebooks, paper has proven to let you retain the information better. So, it's great that you could read the ebooks for school.
If it was an academic paper, I had to print it out so I can mark on it.
Sure.
I can't read that on my phone.
But I could see that because when you're actually reading like a paper book, it's kind of an event. You're like taking the time to do it and you're putting yourself in this position and you're experiencing it. And as opposed to on your phone where you're texting all the time, like it's something that you're doing 24/7. Yeah. So it's not really that same experience as a paperback would be.
That's a good point too. You can't mark up an e-reader. I know with some of them you can highlight stuff,
yeah.
But it's not the same. Using an arrow to highlight, it's not that satisfying. Like I'm coming back to this, I'm folding this.
I know,
page.
If you're doing self-help books. So you prefer self-help books on the e-reader?
I love novels on the e-reader. Because when I travel, I can speed through them and not have to carry a bunch of books, especially if I'm flying. That weighs down my suitcase. I'd rather take more clothes than more books, so I have my e-reader or my phone. Self-help books, those are a little harder, but I can get through them faster.
That is a benefit of an e-reader, like how many books you can bring, right? Like, have you ever had just like so many books in like your plane bag that it's embarrassing?
Yeah, or it's just so heavy, but still, you're working out.
Yeah,
it's great.
And I guess that's a way to
But again, I'll make
it.
my point. When I lived in Uganda, my husband would send books to my Kindle, and then I can download them when I actually had internet and power. I might actually have water to take a shower that day, too, if I was lucky. But I tore through books. I was gone for 4 months, and I probably read 30 books.
See, so it's good for that, but then for me, I'm a big nighttime reader, so I read right before bed, and one of the things that they say about technology is that the light can impede your production of melatonin, which is what you need to sleep, and so they do make those like different like lit ones where they're flat and they're not backlit, or they're not like a cell phone, but for me, just staying away from all of it, I feel better about it because I don't like having problems when I'm sleeping.
That's true.
Yeah. I don't know. Personally, I'm a paperback person because I like a lot of classic literature. And so going back to the experience. So when I'm reading Jane Austen or Charles Dickens, I want to have the book and experience it the way that they envisioned, you know?
There is a certain nostalgia with a paper book that you're just not going to get with an e-reader. It feels like a little more like impersonal. And when you have like a physical thing, like you can tell how long it is. You feel good about reading 1,000 pages if you can physically see it. But if you're just clicking through.
But if I don't know, I don't get hung up like, I'm only halfway through this book because I don't know unless I expand the screen and then I can see I'm on page 5 of 485.
Yeah. And you know, another good thing about the digital age is that we, throughout history, have experienced a loss of literature. Throughout time, authors will have written things and they just go missing. We don't know where they went. And then sometimes we rediscover them, which there's 2 stories in the news sort of in recent times. Anthony Burgess, who wrote A Clockwork Orange, which was a famous postmodernism scary novel that perhaps you have read or saw the movie of. But
I don't do scary.
He created his own language, sort of a version of English. And so he wrote a companion dictionary to go along with that. And then it just went missing, and then he died, and then we lost it. But recently it was rediscovered. Like, where did they find it? They found it just in a cardboard box. So with the digital age, that's not going to happen to us, you know?
Yeah.
There's not going to be, J.K. Rowling's not going to accidentally lose like an important manuscript.
Where did it go? Someone stole it.
Interesting. I found that editor Andrew Gooley found a John Steinbeck short story called With Your Wings. And okay, so people had apparently been talking about this for years. He was speaking with professors and all of these different people, and so it had been talked about, but no one really knew what it was. So, I mean, he went library to library, and it was really hard find, but he found it at Ransom Library at UT.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Holler.
So he's working on getting that out to the public.
There was another really cool one that Joe shared with us. Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World, also wrote this story called Jacob's Hand, and it went missing after his death as well, and then really recently was discovered by Sharon Stone, of all people, in a chest at his estate. So it's little things like that that make the digital age really great for us. So, yeah, I don't know. It's good both ways. It's good both ways.
Well, my advice to any authors out there, type it up, save it to the cloud, send it to people. This is silly that books are lost and then rediscovered, but I guess that's just...
Well, maybe some of the authors preferred them lost, or they really didn't want them out there.
That's true. That is a great...
For fans, it hurts.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things that, ebooks, the cloud, storing things electronically, it makes these books more accessible. But there's other ways that authors are making themselves more accessible. And so let's talk about some of those things.
I love authors who go out of their way to be on multimedia platforms. You know, they're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they have websites, they're on podcasts, which is my favorite kind of media to take.
So who do you follow?
So I follow like a lot of authors on Facebook. I don't do Twitter, but if I did, I would follow J.K. Rowling because she's always on there.
And Neil Gaiman.
He's really active on Facebook, so he's always sharing like little articles of stuff he's written or articles of other writers that he likes. Do you guys follow anyone on Facebook? Is Facebook like a good method for y'all?
I think Twitter is a little bit better. Their authors and the famous people now are just so active on Twitter, and so you can actually reach out, and most of the time you can get feedback from authors, which is awesome. I love that.
So cool.
I follow nonfiction authors on Facebook, and I follow all authors on GoRead.com because it's just easier and I get more content from them that way.
Yeah, that's true.
But I just never thought about following Nicholas Sparks. Like, I can like him, but most of them aren't publishing a whole lot on social
Some
media.
people don't. You have to find the right authors that are actually utilizing the space.
They're doing something.
So people like Neil Gaiman, J.K. Rowling, more prevalent, like current authors that are writing. Lev Grossman, who writes for the New York Times and writes as well.
And if you tune into our next show, we'll have those lists for y'all.
Yeah, of course. But for me, podcast is the #1 way. If you guys love any author, they are probably either hosting a podcast with someone, or they are a guest on a podcast, or there's a podcast about them. I mean, the podcast world is insane. So if you guys love literature, go find podcasts. Google, type in whatever you want to find, and it is there for you. Yeah.
Yes. So, as always, after this episode, we are going to have a 19-minute flash sale on Commonwealth, Tiffany's book. So we'll have more on that. And let us know in the comments about some of our discussions. Are you a hashtag paperback book forever person or a hashtag ebook person forever?
That's me.
So
as you're commenting, let's not forget that you can share this post and get one of our t-shirts. I have them back here behind me. When you share, send us a message and let us know what type of shirt you want. This is the crew neck, and it does say readers are smarter, more fun, and more attractive, because we found out that that is true today.
yeah, we didn't talk about them being more attractive.
Well, it's true.
It is true. Just look at us.
Yeah.
And then we have this V-neck shirt. So share, send us a message, let us know your size, shirt type, and address. Otherwise, I can't send it to you, and we will get those out.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us today. We will be back on Friday, June the 9th at 9 a.m. Central Time. And you'll be here again with Mo.
Andrea?
And Morgan.
And until then, keep reading, writing, and being awesome. I know we will.
Cheers.
All right.
Bye, guys.